Rainlight Fade is a stupid band name. Subscribe.
I've been involved with Rainlight Fade since before they released their first album and before they played their first show at Studio 7. It was originally pitched to me as an artistic collective where artists and musicians would come together to produce something amazing.
I think that Rainlight Fade is more of an artistic collaboration because it never actually started as a band. We started with a recording first and then started bringing people together after the recording, including Steve Ridgren on photography and video and Ryan Chaplinsky, and we've ended up working with a whole ton of people in various capacities.
Over the years, I've had a great time documenting the band through helping with the music videos along with Ryan Chaplinsky. I've been to most of their shows documenting their live performances. I've shot most of their promotional shots of the band, and I've helped with several of the album covers. The new Rainlight Fade EP that I've been doing this documentary about didn't have a title at the time when I started coming up with the artwork ideas for it. And so we were tentatively calling the COVID Challenge EP. These guys all wrote this music in quarantine, so they were in their own individual spaces, communicating digitally, over the internet on writing this music.
I like that idea.
I went into each one of those spaces and documented kind of what their process was. I did some of the interviews for this documentary, and I figured I'm just going to grab still frames from each one of those video clips that I shot, and I kind of tweaked those, did some filters in Photoshop, and then colored them in. You could divide the front of it into 16 squares. 3 squares would be for Rainlight Fade, then there'd be 4 squares for COVID Challenge EP, 4 squares for each of the song titles, and then 5 squares for each one of the band members remotely. The band decided against calling it the CCEP because they thought that the CC might invoke like contemporary Christian music, which this EP is not. They ended up calling it the Box EP. I think that there was a little bit too much going on there, so I decided to simplify it down to 9 squares. So I've got 5 squares for each one of the band members still in their own unique spaces. I've got 1 square for Rainlight Fade, and then 3 squares for the Box and EP. The treatment that I did was kind of this black and white line art that almost looked like a drawing or something like that. I touched up a little bit of that, and then I thought that this might look a little bit too much like Dane's self-titled album that he did. I helped with some of the artwork on that along with Ryan Chaplinsky, and so I decided I need to do something a little bit different here, and so I borrowed from some of my comic book art, and I was doing some halftones in the background of this line art to kind of separate out the figures from the backdrop on there, and it's kind of like this newsprint kind of look to it. For the back of the album, I used a picture of some sheep that I took at the Puyallup Fair many years ago, and I applied that same filter to it along with some halftones. There's one line in the song Cult. Sheep! The band spent a long time on this one line. Sheep!
Yes, that's so good, dude.
So I figured that this would be a good thing to prominently feature on the back of their CD cover. I left some text room for kind of an explanation of how the whole challenge was working with them writing and recording this EP. I'm looking forward to the future and seeing what these amazing musicians create next. I'll be there to document it.
Please subscribe to our channel. Rainlight Fade.